Hello and welcome to my channel. Hopefully by the end of this video you will be better informed of what it's like to live in Sweden for a non-Swedish person, so to speak. Where I'm coming from is just to give myself credibility. I've been living now in Sweden over 10 years. I come from Poland and I really enjoy living here. I did, I think, two videos on living in Sweden on the positive sides, but now I thought it was time to mention a few drawbacks, a few things that really, not really, that tend to bother me while living here in Sweden. So I hope you will enjoy it. So, oh, by the way, I am also it's important and maybe important. It's worth to mention that I live in a city between 50 to 60,000 inhabitants. I think without further ado, it's time to jump into this video. Oh, by the way, this channel is solely run by a human. I thought it was also good to mention it in today's era of AI, right? So, and I also publish after my first take, and I tend to check out my notes, so I want it to be quite raw on this channel, and yeah, that's how I roll. All right, let's jump into it. The very first thing that bothers me when it comes to living in Sweden is never-ending, dismal, soul-crushing winters, right? Again, depending where you live, I live sort of in north of Sweden, so winters can start as early as like early October and end as late as perhaps the end of March or the beginning of April. However, those last 2 months, a month and a half, it's called something like vårvinter. It's like a spring winter when it's actually maybe -5, loads of snow, but really sunny. So you it can be quite lovely. However, the months like November, December, when you barely see the sun, you wake up in the morning and it's dark going to work, and then when you come back from work, it's also pitch dark because the sun sets, I think, roughly around 1 or 2 p.m. So you don't really get the sunlight, but people tend to sort of find sort of remedies to tackle the darkness anyway. But this is the first one that really bothers me and drains energy from me sometimes, right? However, there is also, as I mentioned, silver linings to it. Like when it comes to darkness, Swedes are really remarkable at tackling it with, for example, burning some candles, fika, right? Having a very, very cozy atmosphere at home with fireplaces, with candles, with some good sweets and coffee. They're huge coffee drinkers, Swedes. So it can be quite lovely with this darkness if you sort of have a correct approach. And we're popping vitamin D pills as well. And we go to the sauna, right? So people try to remedy the darkness, and they're quite good at it. Also, it's interestingly, whenever there is a sunny day, right, or there is sun, Swedes just they they all at the same time almost, it feels like it, go outside and face the sun just to stock up on vitamin D and charge their batteries. And after 10 years, I actually am starting to do the very same thing. So it feels like a survivor instinct. Right, number two thing that tend to bother me while living in Sweden is right, no night summers, as I tend to call them. Obviously, I'm exaggerating. However, it feels like the sun gets up roughly in the middle of the night, like I don't know, 3-ish a.m. and it sets perhaps around, I don't know, midnight or so. So it can mess up with your circadian rhythm, this rhythm that actually runs our biological clock and makes us drowsy and forces us to wake up whenever the sun rises and so on. So because of that, and again, there are obviously ways to tackle it, like special drapes that really block all the sunlight and so on. I haven't got those, so perhaps I should get them. But nevertheless, it still bothers me because up until going to bed, it still feels like the middle of the day. So obviously you don't really feel tired. There are some positive sides to it as well. You can see, at midnight people being outside and walking or throwing frisbee and so on, doing normal stuff. So it can feel like your life is prolonged, but it does bother me, 'cause I'm not used to it, coming from Poland, but there are some positives to that as well. Well, it bothers me more than it actually that I can actually appreciate it. So personally, right? Reason number 3 that I think Sweden may be a challenging country to live in at times is right, rigid and inflexible society when it comes to rules. And then this can also affect, like, depending on what you're used to, again, the bureaucratic process of certain things. If you apply for something, let's say a personal number, right, this insurance number, it can take a long time, and this is sort of the way it is. And in various situations, if you're trying to allude to bending some rules, even very minor ones, you will be met with puzzled faces, right? They will not understand what you mean. So they really abide by the law and rules here in Sweden. So again, it can be positive. It sort of means that people trust the government, trust the rule. Perhaps that's why, again, Sweden, I think, was one, if not the only country that didn't have lockdown during the COVID-19 pandemic, because I suppose the government knew that people would still resort to reason and follow those rules that were outlined. Nothing was obligatory, but people did do that, right? So it's sort of ingrained in the society. And again, it can be lovely. I appreciate it most of the time, but at the very beginning, again, I wasn't used to it, so it did bother me. Now a bit less. Now I see more positives of that in that, because again, as a personality thing, I suppose I like rules, so, and order and so on. So if you're into it, well, Sweden can be a dream country, but can be a bit annoying if you're used to a bit more of chaos or a bit more flexibility when it comes to rules and bureaucratic process. Right, let's jump into reason number 4. I think Sweden can be a challenging country to live in. Right, I bet many other channels devoted to Sweden mention it. There is an inordinate amount of taxes you pay. I think it's over 30% of income tax. And also, right, on top of those higher taxes, I can mention that cost of living is it's quite high in general, especially in big cities. I'm contradicting myself when it comes to my previous videos, when I actually mentioned that the cost of living is not that high. But again, it depends on a few factors. Like I knew, now I'm mentioning, living in big cities is very challenging because there's a shortage of accommodations. So there's a huge queue if you want to rent first-hand contract, if you want to land that one. I think in Stockholm, in the capital city, you've got to wait like 20 years or so. It's insane. So people are sort of placing their children, or they stand in the queue for their children whenever the children are born, in order to sort of assure that they've got a place to stay when it comes to Gothenburg, or Malmö, or Stockholm, those bigger cities. When it comes to buying, the prices are like maybe, I don't know, 5 times higher than in smaller towns. So huge cost. And again, when it comes to taxes, there is a positive side to this as well, because those taxes go to things that matter. Not assume, I actually am convinced, because you don't pay really for medical services in Sweden. You pay a small amount, but it's nothing, basically. Education is free, and there's huge benefits for people that are sort of struggling, in some way. Their life is difficult, so there's also always a very lovely network of support of different sorts, and this is due to the taxes. And streets are clean and so on, so it's roughly, you can see those taxes are at work and doing a lot of good. Right, reason number 5, that Sweden might prove a bit challenging to live in. Right, usually trusting the system to work, it's kind of like it's kind of linked to reason number 3, that people tend to follow the rules, actually do follow the rules very strictly. What I mean by like trusting the system too much, like for example, there is plenty of homes for the elderly, but also there is this service that help can come to an elderly person or sickly one every day to kind of like check up on them, perhaps clean a bed, give some medicine, perhaps put on some like special socks to increase circulation, blood circulation, and so on. Perhaps do the bed and small things, right? Again, I'm used to this being carried out by the family, and family sort of visiting people in need, either sickly or elderly, the family members. But here it's sort of like it's okay and it's expected, and it's nothing weird about it, that it's carried out by the system. And whenever I see it, it kind of, a little bothers me, because it's not something I'm used to. It feels like okay, the trust the system, but I think those elderly or sickly people they miss the contact with a family member. I think the same can hold true when you're at the hospital. People trust the system so much that you will not be visited as frequently at the hospital. Well, this is something that bothers me. This is also as a last reason, because I don't consider it as a huge thing, right? It might not bother you, especially when you're just coming to the country. But and again, it can be also positive, because it's good to trust the system. The system is put in place in order to alleviate the citizens, right, and help the citizens and the country, so it's to sort of run smoothly. So again, as I mentioned before, basically to every drawback that I mentioned now when it comes to living in Sweden, there is the positive side to it as well. So there's a silver lining to every drawback, so to speak. Right, and that's it for today. I hope you feel better informed when it comes to Sweden and what drawbacks you may face. Perhaps none of these that I mentioned today you consider to be drawbacks, or perhaps some of them. Please mention in the comments below if you visited Sweden or lived in Sweden or are living in Sweden. Please tell me your experience, the negative ones, the positive ones as well. But I'm very curious of what actually you find bothersome when it comes to living here. Yeah, thank you so much for your precious time. Right, and obviously you've subscribed, right? No, I'm just joking, but consider subscribing if you believe that this sort of content is to your liking. Like, subscribe, comment, all that shebang, and hopefully I'll talk to you soon. Bye.